Welcome to St. Louis, Missouri, home of the Gateway Arch, historic bridges, and old Route 66. Founded by the French in 1673, purchased by the United States in 1804, currently home to over 300,000 residents, and until 1920, it was the fourth largest city in the United States. There are at least 5 different Route 66 alignments in town, from 1926 to 1977. Some of these overlap, and others existed at the same time, so it gets a bit confusing. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the different alignments, ending with the one most traveled today. Our first alignment of Route 66 did not go through the center of the city. Instead, it approached from the south over McKinley Bridge and headed west. This lasted until 1933, when it was replaced with the new Municipal-Free Bridge, known as MacArthur today. So we start in Illinois, TJ's Place at Madison Avenue and East 16th Street in Granite City, head south over Madison, then veer right onto Broadway and head over the railroad terminal into the town of Venice. There are some old buildings here, lots of residential homes, but not much to see from a Route 66 perspective. Once in Venice, the original road is missing, but you can wrap around up to Center Street for entrance to the McKinley Bridge. The McKinley Bridge dates back to 1910 and originally used for the railroad. They began carrying Route 66 travelers in 1926, then closed to traffic from 2001 to 2007, but is open for you today. 3 spans, 18-panel, Pennsylvania Pettit through Truss Bridge. Once you cross the bridge, Route 66 becomes McKinley Street. Cross under Interstate 70, then head west on Salisbury Street. Here you mostly find old brick buildings, retail on the ground floor, and apartments up above. After a few blocks, you will come to a traffic circle. Take the first turn onto Natural Bridge Avenue. Natural Bridge will take you to Fairgrounds Park at the corner of North Grand. Across North Grand, on the right, is an old 1876 building known as the Fairgrounds Park Bear Pits. This is what is left of an old 1876 Century Zoo. The remaining building houses the bears for public entertainment. Turn south on North Grand. Further down on the right is the remains of the old Speedwa School, built in the 1920s for adults to learn various business skills such as bookkeeping and accounting. Down to the next block is the original site of Sportsman's Park, originally called the Grand Avenue Ball Grounds. Baseball was played here as early as 1867, then became home to the St. Louis Browns of the American League and the St. Louis Cardinals of the National League from 1920 to 1953, and the St. Louis Cardinals football team from 1960 to 1965. The Browns moved to Baltimore to become the Orioles, the Cardinals baseball down to the new Busch Stadium in 1966, and the Cardinals football, they moved to Chicago. Head south on Grand all the way past the John Cochran Medical Center, then turn right onto Del Mar Boulevard. Del Mar continues a block until it dead ends into the Training Academy and Prep School. In the old days, Route 66 went right through the school, but today you have to jog around to the other side, catch up with Del Mar on the other side of the school. Now continue a few more blocks until you hit North Sarah Street. Turn left or south. Head south on North Sarah for several blocks. Planet Fitness will be on your left. Then make a right-hand turn on Lindell Boulevard. Then continue west on our 1926 Route 66 for a few more miles until you hit the north side of Forest Park. Along the way, please stop at the historic Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis. Built in 1914, this is the mother church of the Archdiocese of St. Louis. The official consecration of the church was June 1926, just in time for our Route 66. The church is known for having the largest gilded mosaic installation in the Western Hemisphere. Continue on Lindell, pass over Kings Highway. I recommend to spend a few hours exploring Forest Park, larger than Central Park in New York City, home to miles of walking trails, streams, lagoons, museums, open-air theater, and numerous native and imported plants and trees. At the western tip of the park, turn south onto Skinker Boulevard. Continue a few blocks until you come to the world's largest Amico sign at the corner of Skinker and Clinton Road, 40 feet tall and 60 feet wide. At this point, Skinker veers to the right, becomes McCausland Avenue. Pass under Interstate 44, then further down, you'll find a Phillips 66 gas station at the corner of Manchester. Take a right on Manchester Avenue, Missouri Highway 100. This will take you outside of the city limits down to the quiet town of Maplewood. And Manchester Avenue was created in 1835, known as Market Street Road, the first state highway created in Missouri. It was a main road that farmers used to bring their produce into the city. Finally paved in 1921, it was the obvious choice for a new 1926 Route 66 alignment. Maplewood is terrific. Original Route 66 town to explore, historical Route 66 walking guide through town, lots of independent shops and cozy cafes. Although not part of this video, continue on west on Route 66 through the towns of Brentwood, Kirkwood, Des Perez, Wildwood, Grover, all the way down to the Merrimack River and the Route 66 Times Beach Park. That takes us to our next Route 66 alignment in St. Louis. It starts in Madison, Illinois. From TJ's Place again, head south on Madison, then in Madison, head south on 4th Street. 4th Street merges onto North 6th Street. A few blocks later, turn right on Jefferson, then make a left and head south on 2nd Street, Highway number 3. 2nd Street turns into St. Clair Avenue, cross over the I-55 and I-64 interchange, then turn right on North 10th Street. This is East St. Louis. Head southwest on 10th, which becomes Catherine Dunham Street. Continue about a mile to Pidgeot Avenue. From Pidgeot, you would head west over the new Municipal-Free Bridge till it meets what is today's old Route 66 at 7th Street, but today it is closed to traffic. The old Municipal-Free Bridge was built in 1917, provided free access over the river. It was renamed in 1942 as MacArthur Bridge to honor General Douglas MacArthur. Double-deck bridge, upper deck for vehicles, and lower deck for trains. 3 spans, a modified Pennsylvania through-truss bridge with a single-span Pratt through-truss at the western tip. Closed to vehicles in 1981, dismantled in 2014. Continue west to South 7th Street, which is today's old Route 66 on Google Maps. Head 1 block south to Chateau Avenue. On the southeast corner is a small, whitewashed brick building called the Fleur St. Flower Shop. This used to be our old Route 66 Eat Right Diner. Probably started in 1929 as a White Castle restaurant with its typical white porcelain tile walls. By 1933, it became known as a White Kitchen, owned by Mr. and Mrs. Mahana. In 1955, it became the Regal Sandwich Shop. Then in 1966, an eatery called the Gateway Sandwich Shop. Finally purchased in 1970 by Lewis Powers to become our Eat Right Diner. One of the most popular dishes was the slinger, meat, eggs, and potatoes covered with chili, cheese, and raw yellow onions. The diner closed in December 2020 after serving St. Louis for 50 years. Today, it's our Fleur St. Louis. At this point, turn right on Chateau Boulevard. In 2 blocks, you'll cross over Tucker Street. This will become our next and most popular alignment of Route 66. For now, continue west on Chateau. Mostly industrial and high-density residential. Not a lot of Route 66 stuff to see here. Chateau continues west as Missouri Highway 100 and called Bicycle Route 66 on Google Maps. Right before North Grand, on the right next to Walgreens, this is the Neon Museum of St. Louis. All sorts of nostalgic Route 66 signs, as well as new contemporary art. Continue west on Chateau. At the intersection of South Vandeventer Avenue, Chateau veers to the south, becomes Manchester Avenue, which is the original farmers' trade route into the city. Of course, this continues a bit further, pass over Kings Highway, then we meet up with our first Route 66 alignment at McCausland Avenue, coming down from the old Amico sign. Then continues to the town of Maplewood. This brings us to our third alignment of Route 66, starting at the Chain of Rocks Bridge. The Chain of Rocks Bridge opened in 1929. Although the roads on the Illinois side were already paved and ready to go, the St. Louis side wasn't ready until the mid-1930s. This was a private enterprise toll bridge that allowed you to bypass the crowded Municipal-Free Bridge downtown. 55 feet above water, 40-foot wide roadway, 10 spans, over a mile long, with the infamous bend in the corner headed towards Missouri. In 1936, the new bridge began serving Route 66 travelers, even had an amusement park on the Missouri side. The bridge closed in 1967 was replaced with the new Interstate 270 we use today. When the bridge closed, it became a haven for gangs, drugs, prostitutes, and even murder. But it's been cleaned up and opened again to pedestrians and bicycles. There's a large parking lot on the Illinois side. You could access it on the Missouri side through the Riverfront Trail. If you are touring Route 66 from Chicago, I recommend you head over the Mississippi on Interstate 270, take exit 34 to Riverview Drive, then turn left into the Chain of Rocks parking lot. Take a walk on the bridge, return to your car, head south down Riverview Drive. This is our new 1930s to 1940s Route 66 alignment, usually referred to as City 66. This runs south along the west bank of the river. At Riverview Plaza, turn left onto North Broadway. Broadway runs south, past Hickey Park, then merge right onto Calvary Avenue. This will take you west through the center of two cemeteries. On the left is Bellefontaine Cemetery, and don't forget to visit Rush Limbaugh, who's buried down by the chapel. At the end of the cemetery, turn left on Florissant Avenue, past Kings Highway, cross over I-40. On the left is O'Fallon Park. At this point, the original road is somewhat buried, but continue on Florissant several blocks until you hit Salisbury Street, coming out of the old McKinley Bridge. At this point, if you turn right on Salisbury, you're back on original 1926 Route 66, headed west out to Forest Park. Instead, we will continue straight on our fourth and most popular alignment, sometimes referred to as historic Route 66. Head south on Florissant, continue a few blocks until it merges south on 13th Street, then merge right onto North Tucker Boulevard. This is where most people park and tour the downtown portions of St. Louis. Campbell House Museum, Memorial Plaza, Historical Customs House and Post Office, the old courthouse, and of course the famous St. Louis Arch. Opened in 1965, 630 feet high and equally wide, the tallest man-made monument in the Western Hemisphere. This is also where Eads Bridge became designated as another Route 66 route over the river in 1954. Built in 1874, the Eads Bridge was a combined road and rail bridge. It was really the first bridge to cross into St. Louis. The bridge system included both Eads Bridge on the south and the Veterans Memorial Bridge on the north, renamed the Martin Luther King Bridge in 1968. The Eads Bridge comes out at Washington Avenue, then meets up with North Tucker Road to head south on our Route 66. Continue south until you meet with Chateau Avenue, Missouri 100. If you turn right or west, this will take you on our second 1929 alignment, coming from the MacArthur Bridge we discussed earlier. Instead, head straight on North Tucker. This becomes our 1932 to 1977 alignment, referred to as Main US 66 or Old Route 66 on Google Maps. This is the most traveled of our routes, rather simple and mostly getting out of the city. You head south on Tucker, pass under I-44, and make your way onto Highway 30, also called Old Route 66 and Gravois Avenue. Along the way, you see a series of old service stations. First, at 1853 Gravois, this is Jim King Motors, 1930s former ranch-style shell station, gabled roof, 3-bay garage. Next, at 2240, this is Emmons Auto, 1930s service station, brick, roof parapets, corner office, garage bay. Used to say Emmons above the office. At 3001 Gravois at Arsenal Street, this was Taylor Auto Storage, oblong box style, angled corner office, 2-bay garages, enamel panels, probably 1940s Texaco or Gulf station. Today, it's Taylor Auto Sales. At 3115, this is Capital Auto, gabled canopy over the pumps, box brick columns, angled side wall with garage bay, flat roof, decorated parapets, and diamond brickwork. Next, at 3299, this is historic Robert Marty Filling, cottage-style service station. At 3315, just before Cherokee Street, this is Arizona Auto. It's a former Phillips 66 rock frame early 1950s design, large canted, plate glass windows, and 2 large bay garage. At 3330, this is NADS Auto, former cottage-style 1930s gas station, 2 gables crossing on the front facade, steep gabled roof there too. And just before Chippewa, on the right, This is a terrific auto seat covers neon sign. At this point, Route 66 heads west on Chippewa Street, so turn right on what is called Highway 366. Head under Old Chippewa Route 66 underpass, built in 1936 as an underpass for the railroad crossing. Continue about 1.5 miles on Chippewa. At Macklin Avenue, you'll see a former Goldwing Phillips service station. Original Goldwing slanted canopy, huge plate glass windows at the office, 2-bay garage. Another 1/2 mile on the left, at Hampton Street, is Spirit Wine and Craft. Used to be a coffee shop. Before that, it was an old gas station. L-shaped layout, 3 garage bays, plate glass office windows. Across the street is the new Chase Bank. Used to be a standalone building called Bowers Ranch House Restaurant. Dates back to the 1940s when it was known as Tail Horse Restaurant. Anyway, continue west as Route 66 curves more to the south. On the right is Donuts Drive-In. Amazing neon sign and the best donuts on Route 66. Make sure you order the original famous chocolate Long John and other 1950s home recipe delights. Across the street is another ranch-style Shell station. Operates as an auto service today, full separate flat-top canopy. At the next block is the famous Ted Drew's Frozen Custard. Ted was a renowned tennis player, opened his first store in Florida in 1929, followed by another 3. Our store here opened in 1941, it's the last Ted Drew's to survive. Ted is one of our main attractions on Route 66. This is our last stop in St. Louis as we cross over the river to Perret and begin to enter the smaller towns of Marlboro, Crestwood, and down to the Merrimack River. I'll save that portion for another video. Anyway, there you go. Our several alignments on Route 66 through the city of St. Louis. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that helps with your trip planning. Thanks for watching. Bye.